Amsterdam bustled in 1860, its canals glinting in the autumn sun, and the cries of gulls echoing across the docks. Among the crowded harbour, the Flying Dutchman prepared for its fateful voyage to Batavia, Dutch East India. Captain Hendrik Vanderdecken, a man of stubborn pride and iron will, oversaw every detail with precision. His crew, seasoned sailors who had weathered storms untold, sensed an unease in the air. Something was off. The sky seemed too grey, the wind too cold, and the waves lapped at the hull with a whisper that sounded like warning. "Captain," one sailor said, his voice trembling slightly, "we ought to consider turning back. The wind, it speaks of trouble." Vanderdecken's eyes flashed hard as steel. "Trouble? We are sailors, are we not? God himself guides my hand and my ship. Turn back? Never. Batavia awaits, and we shall see it or die trying." The crew exchanged worried glances, knowing better than to argue. That night, the wind picked up, gusting in violent surges, carrying with it the cold sting of the southern seas. Dark clouds twisted above them like writhing spirits, lightning forked across the sky, and the ship's timbers groaned as if in protest. The Flying Dutchman sailed on, stubborn, proud, and unyielding.
By the time the ship rounded the Cape of Good Hope, the storm was a living entity. Waves towered like mountains, each one threatening to crush the ship beneath its weight. Rain lashed like knives, lightning struck the rigging, sending sparks into the wet sails. The crew clung desperately to ropes and masts, their prayers lost in the roar of wind and sea. "Captain, the storm, it's too strong, we cannot survive this," shouted a sailor, voice barely audible over the tempest. Vanderdecken gritted his teeth, gripping the wheel, eyes burning with a mad determination. "We will survive. I command it. God's fury cannot defeat me." But the sea had its own will, relentless and merciless. The Flying Dutchman floundered, tossed like a toy in the waves. Sailors screamed as the deck tilted sharply, water gushing across the planks. One by one, men were swept overboard, swallowed by the angry Atlantic, their cries vanishing beneath the roar of the storm. And still, Vanderdecken clung to the helm, as if sheer stubbornness could defy death itself. The storm raged through the night, tearing sails, snapping masts, and pounding the hull until the ship was a shattered skeleton of wood and rope. The crew, those who had survived the initial onslaught, looked to their captain with terror. Even in the face of inevitable doom, Vanderdecken's eyes blazed with madness.
The Flying Dutchman did not sink, not entirely. Legend says the ship was cursed, condemned to wander the seas for eternity. The crew who survived the initial storm found themselves trapped on a phantom vessel, unable to die, unable to find port. They were neither living nor dead, shadows of their former selves, doomed to toil in the endless storms around the Cape of Good Hope. Sailors in nearby ports whispered of a ship that appeared without warning, its sails ghostly white, glowing under the moonlight. Sometimes the figure of Vanderdecken could be seen at the helm, eyes blazing with defiance and fury, his mouth twisted in a scream that carried over the waves. The ship's bell tolled without cause, and the deck was slick with ghostly rain, the crew moving silently, eternally, in perfect order, yet void of life. The legend spread, warnings passed from mariner to mariner. Seeing the Flying Dutchman was a bad omen, a portent of disaster. Those who looked upon it often did not live to tell the tale. The first recorded sighting occurred in 1835 by a British ship's crew. They reported a ship emerging from the mist, sails full yet tattered, riding an unnatural calm atop furious waves. Lightning crackled around it, thunder shook the heavens, and the sailors' hearts froze. As they approached, fearing collision, the ship vanished into thin air, leaving only the smell of brine and decay. In 1881, the HMS Bacchante sailed near the Cape, and two crewmen spotted the phantom vessel once again. They described it in meticulous detail. A 17th century merchant ship, sails straining as the caught in a storm that existed only around it. Figures moving on deck, yet impossible to touch. The day after the sighting, one of the men fell to his death from the rigging under mysterious circumstances, a victim, some believed, of the ship's curse. Even in 1939, far from the open sea, sunbathers on the coast of South Africa reported seeing the ship. Its masts and rigging glinted in the sunlight, sails torn yet perfect in form. The details were consistent, a ghostly vessel trapped between worlds, drifting on a sea that should not exist for it. The last reported sighting in 1942 had 4 witnesses watching the Flying Dutchman sail into Table Bay. They could see its hull, its spectral crew, even the glint of the captain's eyes before it disappeared into mist and shadow.
Stories of the Flying Dutchman persisted through centuries, whispered in ports and taverns from Amsterdam to Cape Town. Mariners feared the waters, knowing that even today the ship might appear in the fog, sails ghostly white, deck alive with the cursed crew. They spoke of storms that seemed to follow the apparition, lightning that struck with no warning, and an unearthly cold that descended when it appeared. Some claimed the captain's figure could be seen pacing the deck, hammering at the helm, shouting orders to a crew long dead. The air would carry an echo of despair, the moans of men trapped in eternity, the sound of waves that could not be calmed. Ships that sailed too close reported strange compasses, sudden winds, and the sensation that time itself slowed, as if the world feared to intrude on the curse of the Flying Dutchman.
Even now, sailors claim to see it in the distance, a phantom on the horizon. Fog swirls, rain lashes the deck, and then the shape emerges, a 17th century ship, ghostly and eternal, with a captain who defies death itself. Those who glimpse it know they have witnessed more than a ship. They have seen punishment made manifest, stubbornness turned to curse, pride transformed into terror. The Flying Dutchman sails still, doomed to roam the Cape of Good Hope forever. No port can claim it, no storm can destroy it. Vanderdecken and his cursed crew glide across the waves, reminders that some defiance, some sins are never forgotten. And for those who see it, the memory lingers, a shiver down the spine, a whisper in the wind, a warning that some legends are true and some spirits never rest.